All right. So we left off talking about pricing, right? Because last time we just did mostly the setting up of your business, right? The ISBNs, the establishing your business identity, and talked about like bank accounts and all that nitty gritty stuff. And so we kind of left off here on pricing, which, I mean, I think we kind of covered this last time, so we're not going to redo. But this launches us into the second part of the business. So the first part of the business is establishing yourself as a business and actually making books, right? And then the second part of the business is selling it. You got to sell the books. And so we're going to talk a little bit about selling books, and we're going to talk about as an author, because it's geared more towards like if you're going to be an indie author, how do you build your platform? How do you create an audience, and how do you keep that audience connected to you between books? So selling the book. We're going to talk about live venues. You remember when that happened? Y'all remember way back when? Back in the other lifetime that we lived? We used to have these things called live venues, and we could go in person and set up your table, and people came by and they said hello, and you used to be able to shake hands with them and take pictures together when they bought your book. Yeah, it was a really good time. These are really great places. Actually, I'm looking forward to post-COVID events, because these are actually really great selling places for authors. Book fairs, festivals, Comic-Cons. Oh my God, those are just amazing and fun. You get to dress up. I hope all of y'all know that. I mean, all of y'all like to dress up, right? Like cosplay. Everybody here's cosplaying, right? Yeah. And arts and craft fairs. Traders Village has some really great options and events, not very expensive. I mean, a little bit expensive, but you can pool together as authors. There were library events, events held at the libraries, indie bookstores, had book signings and such. I mean, these were wonderful places that you could go and meet people, and people could meet you and buy your book. And, they will be coming back at some point. So what do you need for these kinds of events, in preparation for like 2022, when that sort of thing returns to our lives? You need a tax permit. Okay. You need a tax permit. In terms of taxes, I mean, if you're selling through Amazon, they pretty much handle taxes for the locations where they sell everywhere. But you're going to have to handle state taxes when you're selling your book in person. And so the tax permit is an important part to get, so that the state of Texas doesn't come after you when they discover you. Then you want to buy a tent. Somebody had a question? No? Okay. You want to get a tent, and you want to do a 10 by 10. It's tempting to try to say, hey, look, you can get a little bit bigger one, but 10 by 10 is the standard for these outdoor venues. That's the space they're going to give you. And actually it's the standard space even for indoor venues, for which you don't need, some of these are outside, some of these are inside. If you go to a Comic-Con, the standard booth size is 10 by 10. And so 10 by 10 is a good size. You want to get some tables, at least 2 good folding tables, 6 foot. You can get some 8-footers, but they're heavier to carry. So, 6 foot is good. There's some really nice ones that fold and have a little handle to them. Some chairs for you to sit. Banners. You want to get some banners going, at least one, to drape behind you, or, or one of the, maybe a stand-up one to be near you. So it will attract people's attentions, and they know who you are and what you're doing there, what you're selling. Table covers are beautiful things that you can that you can purchase. They're not very expensive, and you can personalize them with your logo. You know, if you write a very specific kind of genre, you want to make sure that that flavor of that genre is on that cover. Decor for your table. You know, I have a wonderful author, Meg Havdahl. Her book is coming out in October. She writes horror, suspense. So her table has a lot of skeletons and has a lot of ravens and other assorted blood and guts kind of stuff. So you want to have those kind of things, book stands and little display stands, so that you can, you know, position your table, your books, so that they're appealing to people walking by. You want to have postcards, bookmarks, your business cards. I honestly think that if you're going to hand people out material, the best thing to hand out is a bookmark. It's useful. You know, I've seen a lot of postcards, you know, when you're clearing out a venue and you're picking up after everything. I've seen a lot of them like in the trash or on the floor, but I seldom see a bookmark on the floor. I think people tend to keep bookmarks because they're, like I said, they're useful. You know, you use them to put in books, and you know, they might use your bookmark for some other books that they buy, but then eventually when they're using it, they'll be seeing it, and, you know, they'll get your book. So I think it's the best thing to have. If you're a small press, right? If you're going to be marketing other books, other people's work as well, then business cards, you know, business cards are a must. And then there's a lot of people who have swag. You know, I've seen tables with like candy for the kids, other things, you know, like ribbons, whatever kind of goes with your theme, you know, that you want to kind of give away, you know, pens, things, you know, think of things that are useful. You know, think of, if you're going to give some swag away, make sure it's something that, you know, people will generally keep using. And, you know, after multiple uses, they might actually realize, oh, wait, you know, I have never gotten this book, and get it, you know, kind of thing. So those are the things you need for venues, you know. Sales tax, like I said, you need to have a tax permit. The tax men, they attend these events, and they do come up to your table and want to see your permit. So you do want to have one, you know. And the first year, you're going to have to fill out the tax statement quarterly. Everybody has to fill it out the first year quarterly. But then, you know, they will automatically switch you to a yearly when they realize you're not making millions. Because they don't want to process small amounts every quarter. So they will just automatically do it. You don't really have to worry too much about sales tax in terms of Amazon, because they kind of handle that on their end. Online, that's where we're all living right now. We're living in a virtual world. And so looking at options for online promotions has become really important right now. Blog tours they had kind of dropped a little bit as far as, you know, authors using some, but they're kind of picking up again, because, you know, that's one of the main things available to us right now. Lone Star Literary has some really great blog tour packages and stuff that you can do. You do sometimes see a good spike in sales, depends on you know, subscribers to the blog. That's something you want to look at when you're looking at blogs. You know, how many subscribers do they have? How many followers? You know, how many comments on average? So that tells you how much visibility you're going to get. BookBub is still really good. It is expensive. It is hard to get a promotion with them, but once you do, then usually it pays off very well. And then you can look at some book clubs online. There's a lot of, if you just Google book clubs, There's a lot, and you can offer them a discount if everybody buys your book, and then you can offer to come and discuss it with them after they have read it or before they've read it, or however they run their book club. And of course, podcasts. That's something that I don't know why it's not on here, but podcasts are really good, and getting on podcasts and promoting through those are really good. And I know Sandy has like a whole list of awesome podcast resources, so that's something to check in with her on. Amazon author page. Okay, so everybody, once you've gotten published, whether you're published an individual book, or if you've been published in an anthology, if you have a short story somewhere in another book, you have an Amazon author page. This is really a free website. It has a lot of limitations because it's, Amazon, so it's very standard looking to everybody else's author page. However, you can claim your books that you are published in there, so people can follow you. I know I follow several authors, and I get notifications from Amazon when they have something new that they're putting forth. So that's something that you want to definitely have up to date. You can customize it to an extent. It is not really a good substitute for your own website. You really should have your own website. Social media. There's so much debate about social media right now. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. But one thing I do know is everybody's on it. And so if you're an author, you need to be on it. And you need to be getting a following, because that's really part of your what constitutes the author platform, right? You're following on social media. The big three, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's a lot of new ones. Pinterest. I know that, what was the gentleman's name that came a little while ago, talked about Pinterest?
It's very interesting. John Kramer?
Yes, John Kramer. He was talking about Pinterest. I had never thought of Pinterest in that way, because, for me, Pinterest has been mostly like, I just find pictures that, spark my imagination or that remind me of my characters to help me to write. But I hadn't thought of it as that much interactive. And he was talking about how videos are big on Pinterest. So if you've got some book trailers, that is a great place to put them. And of course, Instagram, which is all about visual, and Facebook and Twitter. Now, Twitter, your tweets are really fast and they get pushed down very quickly. So you want to have some kind of strategy to tweet, with a little bit of extra consistency, maybe have some already pre-done, ready to go out. And Facebook, you can schedule them on Facebook, which is kind of nice. We do a lot of scheduled posting on Facebook, because that way it just blasts out automatically. But these are some online places that you want to be as an author. Before we go there, let me just talk about Facebook real quick, about pages. So, we all have our personal profile, right? And then we have our page, our author page. Pages are not as visible in the algorithm for people's news feeds. So even though people like your page and they follow your page, that doesn't mean Facebook is necessarily posting a lot of what you're posting on your page. Many times, I have to have a day where I go into the different pages I like and see what they're posting, because sometimes I haven't seen something from them for a while. So it's a good idea to set up your actual personal profile to be kind of your author page, because that way whatever you post as an author gets more visibility than a page does, And also remember to be reciprocal with each other. If an author has shared something of yours, if a fellow author shares something of yours, find something on their page to share, to reciprocate, because as we help each other grow our followings, then the community gets stronger as a whole. So just be careful with pages. And I've seen some authors who make pages for the book, So the book has its own page. I really don't recommend that unless you have a universe. You know, for those of us who have like a world of that book, you might do more about the world of your novels. You know, if you have multiple novels, individual book pages can be heavy to manage, and I don't see them being very effective necessarily, you know, individually. So that's something to keep in mind is, you know, how much, the more pages you have, the more you're going to have to post and the more you're going to have to keep up with. So try to streamline your efforts, you know. All right, book launches. Well, we specialize in book launches here with Sandy and Amy and the gang. There was a time when we could do in-person book launches. We could all gather together and celebrate and have, you know, a party. And someday we will do that again. And so it's a good idea to find venues that offer some food. You can have people pay their own food, and maybe you can cater a part of it. Like if they are going to just choose to eat a meal on their own, you might just have like cater some dessert or something. Depends on how much you want to spend, you know. I always like creating fun games. I tried to do like Clue. Out of almost every book that we have ever published, I could come up with a Clue game. You know, you can do some things like that. I did one where we did, what's that one called? Not Whose Line Is It Anyway, but the celebrity one where you have the first line, you have a line of, and then the celebrities have to fill it in, and then you have to guess what they see if your guess matches theirs or something. I don't remember what it's called, but it was a lot of fun when we did it with the Houston Writers Guild book launch. I mean, everybody was like bursting out at the kind of stuff that, you know, people would write in. So try to create games, make it interactive. A lot of people do read aloud louds of their work, which is a great way to spur them into, like, you know, buying the book. And then, of course, giveaways, you know, fun giveaways. I mean, Inklings loves to give away swords and other assorted pointy weapons. But depending on what the book is about, you might decide, you know, what kind of cool giveaway you want to do, you know. Online parties are great. That's where we are now. We're living in a virtual world. And, you know, it's also cost effective because, you know, you're not having to spend on food. But you do want to make sure with online parties, this is the hard part, I think, to like book launch parties, is making sure you get the freebies to the people, you know, and making sure, you know, that you if you're offering them a giveaway that it gets sent, you know. It's also a really cool thing because with book launches that are online, you can invite other authors that are also in the same genre, you know, to come and have a turn and talk about their books, and you're celebrating your genre as a whole, and also they're bringing their fans with them, you know. You might want to vary like the level of the different authors that you have with you, some that are already more established and some that are newer, and that way you're all kind of helping each other gain that visibility. Book signings, oh my gosh, you know, you remember those, the days we could sit at a bookstore and sign books and people came. That was really cool. I would also say, you know, you want to make sure that with your book signings that you have a good following, and that the bookstore or the location where you're going to have your book signing has a good following themselves as well. You know, that they maybe make sure they have a newsletter list that they blast out to, so that you're getting their people as much as your people, you know, bringing not just your own fans, but new fans. Because sometimes I have seen some book signing events where, you know, the venue didn't really have a way to communicate their events to their public. And, you know, the author was relatively new, and then they ended up sitting there very alone. And that's not something you want, you know? So always make sure that you pick your venues to complement and to bring in new fans for you. So developing a following, right? That's number one key to marketing, is getting fans. And you know, the biggest thing is alternative publications. One of the coolest things to do is write some short stories. We all have amazing characters whose stories we can't tell because, you know, you need to focus the book on the main story. They all have backstories. And you can turn these into little short stories. You can put them out there and submit them to magazines and anthologies. I know that Texas Sister Press has one right now coming up for Christmas stories. So, you know, if you've got a little Christmas story, submit to them. You have contests going on for publication as well, like the Authorology and other places have contests for short stories. So this is a great way to get fans. Your work will be in a book with other authors' work, which means that all of these authors will be working to promote that book. And so your work is going to be read by the fans of all the other authors, you know, and whoever the press itself that's publishing it pushes it to. So this is a wonderful way for them to get to know your work as an author and to begin to follow you. I've seen a lot of reviews for some of the anthologies out there where people say, you know, oh, they had a lot of stories by a lot of authors and I really liked this one. And I found out that author had, you know, this other novel. And so that's what they're for, really. That's what anthologies do for you as an author. When you're in an anthology, make sure that you can get copies of it, you know, and maybe even sell it yourself, you know, so that you can promote your work and the work of the others in there as well. And also, you know, find out how much promotion is the press going to do for it? How much is it going to have a promotion, you know, besides just the authors that are in there? Because you know, that's part of what your benefit is. Besides, you know, some of these actually pay, you know, for your work, which is kind of nice to get paid for your work, but it's usually not that much. So, you know, the biggest plus for an anthology inclusion is readership, is the opportunity to reach readerships. So be also very aware of what you choose to submit, you know, because you want it to match whatever your novels are, you know. Make sure that you either use some of your side characters or use stories that are also in that same universe or world or in that same historic time period. You know, make sure that they connect to your novel, because that way, if the reader liked that one, they will transfer to the novel. Okay, so making sure that what you submit is engaging to the readership you're looking for. All right. Oh, my mouse doesn't want to work. Okay. Newsletters. Okay, so newsletters are your number one way to keep in touch with the people who are becoming your fans. Okay. When people buy our books, you know, we don't have any way of knowing who they are sometimes, right? So, but a lot of people like to follow authors. People follow authors. They don't really follow books. They follow authors or fandoms. And so once they find your website, it should have a way for them to subscribe to a newsletter. And that way you have captured them and you can continue engaging with them, you know, between the time of publication of the next book. MailChimp, Constant Contact, these are some newsletter management softwares, very easy to use. Create templates. They send it out to everybody. I use Wix for our website, and it has a built-in newsletter feature. So it's called online marketing, and basically it's the newsletter, and you can do everything through Wix, which is kind of nice. So you only have one site to log into, but you can build your campaigns. So what goes into these newsletters? where you're going to be, you know, but when we get back to a time when we can actually go places and be places, where can they go meet you? People, readers love to meet authors. They love to meet authors, you know? And so that's a big one to promote, you know, is where you're going to be. What books are you working on now? You want to give them a little update on, you know, what's your work in progress? Maybe a little snippet of it, you know, to give them a little tease of it. Maybe even a little piece that you want some feedback on, and let your readers, you know, give you some input on, like, what did they like, what did they not like. Give them an author question, you know, to consider, you know. Is there enough setting in this scene, or should I add more? And then they can opine, and people love to opine. I mean, everybody loves to opine. We all opine all the time now. And so, you know, giving them that kind of thing, a little special deal of the month on your books. If you have the opportunity to do a little offering every month, a little something special. Maybe if they order your book one month, they also get a signed bookmark, or, you know, if they order from you, you know, versus on Amazon, you know, they might get a little something extra. So you want to give little deals for your newsletter people. And then also, and I already said excerpts of work in progress and things that are about to be released, you know, or maybe even just little giveaway stuff. Maybe stuff that isn't going to be released anywhere. It's just for your newsletter people. You know, maybe they get a special little mini look at the background, or the, you know, a major moment in the history of the character that is in the novel, you know, and that's something that only if they subscribe to your newsletter, they're going to get to read. So, you know, things that make it special. I don't know why I keep trying that mouse. It's not working. One thing about newsletters, you want to do a newsletter once a month. Okay, once a month. Because A, you don't want to kill yourself trying to do a gazillion things. And B, people don't want to be spammed on their emails. So, you know, once a month is a great tool, and it's not too much for you, you know, and they're not going to unsubscribe because, you know, they're tired of seeing you every other day. Author websites, okay? Everybody has to have a website. Author websites give you a sense of legitimacy as an author. It gives you a place for your fans to find you when they Google you, you know, and you want to be able to capture your visitors. They will follow you through the Amazon author page, and Amazon controls what they see. You know, I have no control over what Amazon sends me in their newsletter. Whereas in your author page, you can set up your newsletter subscribers capture so that you can have control over your conversations with your fans, you know, and how you keep them connected to you. On your author page, it doesn't have to be complicated. A little bit about you, you know, your homepage, your latest book, right? A page dedicated to all of your publications. As we get more and more wonderful works out there into the world, you know, we want to feature them there with links to go buy them. A link to your social media, you know, so that people can follow you on social media as well. You know, the more connected they are to you, the better. If you have a blog, if you write a blog, that's a great place to post it as well. You know, also depending on the genre that you write, you might have some information about the world of your books. I know, like Kathy has the Mayflower. I mean, you can have a page on your website about just the, you know, some of the research material that didn't make it into the book, or, you know, little tidbits that you learned along the way. You can have a page that connects to your book and gives some additional information that wasn't in the book. And for those of us who write, you know, science fiction, fantasy, I mean, we've got rich worlds that we can populate a page about, you know, the backstories about the planet, about all kinds of things, right? You might consider doing another website for your world. If you have a whole, you know, built-in world that you're working in, you might consider doing a website just for that. what I was looking one day at some of the websites of like famous people like George R. Martin, and George R. Martin's website gave me a headache because it was like so full of stuff. I was like, I don't even know where to click at this point. What is this stuff? So don't overwhelm your website. Keep it nice and simple, you know, make it easy to navigate for your people, you know. But you might check out some of your favorite authors. You know, I would say as you're thinking about your own website, if you haven't already set one up, or even if you do, if you want to just, you know, tweak it, go look at some of your favorite authors and what do they have on their website, you know, or authors that write in the same genre that you do. You know, what kind of stuff do they have on their website? The cool thing about websites is that you really don't need to update them, but once a quarter. Okay, once a quarter, you want to update the home page for sure, right? Some new message on the home page, on the landing page. And maybe, you know, if you've had a new publication, you might add it to your publications page, you know, or, you know, feature some article or something. You know, once a quarter is a good schedule to update your website. The one thing you don't want to do is to make it static, where you set it up and you never see it again, you never touch it again, and it's just there forever. Because, you know, why should readers come back to it, right? The website should be something that they visit, you know, because they know that, you know, on a certain schedule, you will have updated information, and that's how you keep them motivated to keep coming back. Some of these websites will archive your newsletters too. So each month, your new newsletter posts automatically onto your website, and that gives you a monthly update on it. But then purposely going in and changing the homepage at least once a quarter is a good idea, just to give it a freshness to it. And so those are just the basic things to create a following with, and to build that platform that will result in sales. And, you know, we didn't really do one on blogging. I know some of you guys maybe have blogs. Blogging is a whole creature, and it's a great way to connect with your readers. If you're doing a blog, you might not need a newsletter as much, because you have a way to keep putting fresh content in front of your readers. But a newsletter is also a good way, because you're introducing places that you're going to be in, and events and maybe specials, you know, that you wouldn't really put into a blog. You know, you wouldn't put that kind of info into a blog. So you might want to have both. And that is it for this presentation, and for just the general, like the business side of setting up the production, and then just kind of beginning to establish your author platform and building a following. So do you guys have any questions about this stuff that I can answer, or anything? Jeremy.
Of course, Fern, it's me.
Of course. I love you, Jeremy.
I love you too. So I don't have a question, but this is I'm curious how it means for what this would look like for other authors. So because of some of my distribution methodology, I have the people who are doing the online stuff and the print on demand stuff. Then I have, so they act like Amazon for me in a lot of ways. Then the print stuff goes to these guys send it to large distributors. So once they order it, the prints go directly to him, and then he puts them out. So he's the middleman. I don't have to do anything. This one I supply with a number of prints. He's the one that takes them to conventions. I go to conventions as well, but I don't have a booth. I go to conventions to run the game, and then he sells the book at his booth. So I don't pay for a booth, but I do pay for a slot where I can run the game. Is there an equivalent for authors where they could do it where they're not having to have a booth, but they could have a distributor, meaning a Hayward conglomerate, maybe it's several authors, I don't know. And then they have a forum where they're talking about the book itself. I don't know if stuff like that is done.
Yes, absolutely. At conventions, the way they work, like I've seen a lot of authors who self-publish kind of get together for the booth space, as far as selling the book. But also you can do it through some of the bookstores, because if like Barnes and Noble or, Murder by the Book or whatever bookstore is going to be there, you can arrange for them to actually bring your book and sell it. And conventions always have some kind of literary track going on, of panels and speakers and other events. So you as an author could focus on that side of like just getting yourself on some panels, getting yourself into some events, and then have someone, like a bookstore selling your book for you. Yes. So you could definitely do that. And then depending on the booth structure, you might have a time that you are there at the booth to sign, to be the featured author signing moment, and the best way to coordinate that is once you've had your time at a panel, right? If you've been on a panel, right after that, you want to be at the booth, because usually they're going to come look for you at that moment, so you want to coordinate your author signing moments to your panel appearances. Okay.
But if you're reading the chat, that was me.
Yes, I'm reading chat.
About Bard's Tower. Bard's Tower is one of the organizations that does that. So, and they have big people. They have like Kevin J. Anderson and Jonathan Mayberry and all kinds of people, because they always let a lot of superstars in as well. So if you've been to the Superstar convention, but you have to be going to that convention for them to carry your book. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I can't have them go to San Diego Comic-Con if I'm not going to be there, but I'll be at Comicpalooza, they'll carry my book there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But it also varies by person. But yes, so I mean, you just have to find the people who are coordinating these with authors.
If you go to the convention, you can go to each thing and see what they are and what they do.
And if you are a publisher, because I mean, a lot of us here are publishers, you have your booth and you can place your authors as a publisher. I mean, a lot of times I put my authors on panels. I help create panels for these events, and so does Kelly, and all of us. So that your authors are going to be in these panels, and so when they're going to come to your table to sign, and you kind of just create that. I mean, we just bought a wonderful banner that looks like a feather for author signings, which we have yet to get to use because we got it, for this convention season. That didn't happen. Yeah.
To go back to Jeremy's question, Authors Marketing Guild does that for authors. They take your book around and sell it to places where you maybe can't go. But
and one of the good things about Authors Marketing Guild, I mean, is that they do go to really expensive places. Like they go to TLA. A booth there is extremely expensive, and it's not really cost effective, because like at TLA, you really have to give away the books. I mean, people are there for free bucks. So, but the good thing about a group like Authors Marketing Guild is that they're going to have your book there on display, right? So and you can give them like bookmarks and other things that people can take with them. So you're not giving away books, but you're being visible to librarians and others, that you want to be in contact with, and you're not spending the $800, or I don't even know what cost they are anymore. But I think the one and only time we went, it was like $800 for the booth. It was like,
oh wow,
yeah, it was a deep dark red hole.
So I was one of the last conventions I went to in March was the Association of Writers and Writers Programs in San Antonio, and Alan had his booth there, and he had my book as on display. But it was interesting. I would every once in a while wander over and say, Alan, do you want to take a break? I will staff the booth for you. And we did that several times, and I was out there in the aisle selling my book. I mean, I'd say, this is the display, but here's my book. And I sold some books that way, which otherwise wouldn't have gotten sold. Alan was paying for the booth and the space and all of that, and I got to be out there in the aisle marketing my book.
And let me tell you, I love Comic-Cons and conventions because of that, because people are walking by and you get a chance to sell your book. Nobody can sell your book the way you can. Nobody's going to have the enthusiasm that you, the author, have for your world. And I love watching our authors because every one of them is unique in how they approach people, you know. Like Meg, she likes to sit behind the table with her beautiful display of, you know, of skulls and other assorted spooky stuff. And she just, you know, calls out to people, and, you know, and they come over and, you know, they start talking. And then we have Verstant, who literally just assaults people with books. I mean, he stands in the middle of the hall, and, you know, he has his story, and he's like, "Do you read? Oh yeah, read this." And he sticks it in their face. And, you know, he sells like 9 out of 10 out of those people. I don't even know, you know? So it's fun to see, you know, your personalities and how you develop your technique, you know. Like, I would not, you know, stick my book in anybody's face, but it works for him. I don't know how he does it. He always sells out. So, you know, you develop your style. The one key thing is you can't just sit there and stare at your phone. Okay? Don't do that. Or write. Some authors, I've seen them, they try to do that. You know, they have their computer with them, and they're there, author at work, and it looks real cute, but you're not engaging with anybody. And they'll pass you by.
It's a marketing event.
Yeah. They'll pass you by.
I know for me, whenever I do a Comic-Con, you know, remember when we used to could do those?
Remember those? Those were so awesome.
I don't think I sit down all day. Unless, like, sometimes when they're having like a big guest or a panel or something, the vendor hall will quiet down, and I'll sit down for a minute or two. But if you're there to sell books, you need to be on your feet, smiling at people, talking to people, you know, blah, 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 you know. And, you know, for CJ, when she and I first started doing this, CJ, you know, has already admitted she used to be very, very shy. And she's still kind of a little bit of a wallflower when she wants to be, but, you know, I've created a monster now because she runs around and she takes selfies and she passes out business cards, and but, you know, it's like smart, because every selfie she takes, she hands them a card and says, "I'm going to post this on my website. You can come see it later tomorrow," you know, blah, blah, blah.
The other thing I'm doing is I'm wearing a CJ Peterson Writes t-shirt.
Exactly. So it's just like, you know, you just can't be shy. I mean, you know, if you're shy, I'm sorry, but just out of your comfort zone. You're there to sell some books and make some money.
Yeah, you can be shy. The thing is, you have to put on a personality. And that's what I tell my authors, you know, you're not there as you. You're there as you, the author person, right? So create a personality, create a character for yourself. And then when you're there, you don't feel like you're there yourself, exposing yourself, but like it's you, a person. I mean, I dress up. I have like sets of costumes, and I dress up, and people will come up and ask to take pictures because of the costume, which is a great way to draw them, like the t-shirt, you know. And then you talk to them about books and about reading and about, you know, and get them engaged in the books that you're selling. And so you have to you just have to become comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess.
That's what I do. But I like talking, so it's a little easier. And of course, Athena puts me out there as the talker. But once I get people over to her and have her talk, she then is very friendly and very talkative, and she can go on for hours. But you have to push her into it. You have to take the pitchfork and give her a shove out there. But I talk to people more naturally, even though I am a shy and introverted person. But I get into that character, the writer, and it makes it easier.
Every time I tell somebody that I'm actually an introvert and I don't really like talking to people, they're like, "No, Fern, you're so cool. You talk all the time." Well, I push myself to do this, you know, and you have to. But one of the things
the other thing you can do is give something away. If people will sign up for your email list. And, you know, I usually give away a book and a dragon, because one of my books has a dragon on it. And that's how I've, like, over the course of 3 years, had built that's how I began my email list,
Mhm.
you know, and again, I promise not to spam people so they don't, you know,
Right, yeah.
they're not real quick to, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess,
unsubscribe.
you know, over the last few, last couple of years, I've had like 5 people drop out. The rest of them, they're like, oh, cool. Lydia sent us something,
And one thing
I
about
like to give
newsletter,
away bookmarks when I'm at these things. So
yeah,
first off, bookmarks are cheap. Everybody likes a bookmark, even if they don't like your book or what you're writing, or they don't read that type of thing. They'll take a bookmark, and I always tell them, hey, take a bookmark. It goes with everything, works everywhere, that kind of thing. And then if they stop and talk, if they're like, they'll look at the bookmark and it has a picture of the book on it and words that sometimes you can or cannot read, depending on how many words you get on the bookmark. And then you can get to talk to them about your book, and you can tell really right away if the person is interested in your book or if they are being polite and just listening to you ramble. So if you're just listening to you ramble, sometimes it's like, all right, well, let me just say something nice and interesting, and they can take the bookmark, and if they come back later and get the book off the bookmark, that's fine. If not, they got a bookmark they can pass to their friends. And I even tell them that if you don't like murder mysteries, if you don't like sci-fi, whatever, give it to your friend who does.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they always have friends that they can shop for.
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to say, like two quick things that I thought of as you guys were mentioning. The first one is when you're engaging with people, make sure that you know something real quick and engaging and hookish, your hook, what to tell them about your book. Because you don't want to ramble on about the story, right? You want to make sure that you tell them the gist and the hook, right? The reason why they want to know more, why they want to read this book. This book is about, and you have to keep it short and sweet and hooking. And the other thing
And I'll
about,
tell you a trick. Wait, real quick before you get into it, because the trick to that also is, in generally speaking, men prefer worlds. So they want to hear a quick thing about your world that you built. Women prefer characters. So women would prefer to hear about what your main character's thing is. So you can also do that between, of course, it's not always true. No such thing as universal truths. But generally speaking, men prefer worlds and women prefer characters.
yeah. And with newsletters, one of the things as you're building your newsletter, and a way to do so is to do newsletter swaps with authors, where the one author will feature you in their newsletter and you will feature them in your newsletter. This is a great way to help build each other's audience, and also to fill your newsletter, because sometimes you just don't know what to send out. And so this is a great way, you can kind of pay it forward to another author, and then they reciprocate. So, and you can do newsletter sign up giveaways, like we've been talking, in different groups, as part of your news swap. If they sign up for yours, if their audience signs up for your newsletter, they get a little something, from you. So it's a great tool. Newsletters build readership, they really do. And they keep your fans connected to you in between books. Because none of us are at a place where we can pump out a book a month, right? So we need to keep them connected with some bridge text, But yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when we can go back to Comic-Cons, because those were fun. Yeah. Other questions, you guys, or comments?
Hi, I have a question. So if I'm published through Rock Hill, for instance, and I get a small business license for myself, so I can claim different expenses like advertising, my website, etc. Are there then small business grants that are just free funds that one could apply for?
There are some grants and fellowships for authors, for individual
Really?
authors. So you would just need to do some, some research on which ones would apply for you, But yes, you can do that. Now, you are not going to be a nonprofit, right? So just make sure that the grant doesn't require some kind of nonprofit status. But most of the ones that are for individual authors, the fellowships and such, they don't require that, because they know you're working on a work in progress.
What is the difference? What is a fellowship versus a grant, for instance?
Fellowships tend to have a sort of they tend to be more educational based rather than just, money. It's more about helping you have time for your writing. So basically they're trying to give you a stipend so that you can maybe take some time off and just
I
work
see.
on the writing, or they tend to be connected to educational type situations.
That makes
I'm
sense.
going to say
And
Those
that
fellowships
fellowships
also
are
include a
made
place.
by schools or universities usually,
ah,
or writing groups.
Writing.
Like, yeah.
And
Mhm.
sometimes they include residencies. Yeah, like Kelly said,
Right.
sometimes you get to go somewhere and
Right.
and hang out and and write, which is
And
always good.
absolutely.
And
And
grants
final.
are given by government agencies or
Mhm.
churches or some kind of public, because they're getting the money as a tax write-off. And they
Sure.
get the money and they give it to the authors as a tax write-off. So grants are usually given by like public, by like corporations or something like that, not necessarily educational type of organizations.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And my final question might be a little bit too specific, but I know things are different in different countries, states, etc. However, when you were to, if you were to claim expenses as an individual author, would you include things, say, such as your home office space, home office furniture, your new laptop that you bought for the project? Would you include a portion of your utilities and internet expenses for that home office, etc.?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, all
that's
of those
easy.
things. And now you have to make sure your CPA,
Sure.
itemizes them correctly so that you don't get tagged by the IRS. But yeah, all your
Sure.
home office on your office expenditures, all of that is part of your home that you use for as an office. Is
Right.
definitely
If you do it wrong, the IRS is going to come back and they're going to charge you quite a bit of money. I'm paying back taxes now because some of the stuff I put on, they did not like.
I'll tell
Yeah,
my
Vern's
CPA
right.
is in Virginia. His name's James.
Yeah, 'cause
No, don't
when
send
you
them
said
my way. I
writers-
got enough problem with the IRS myself.
Because writers are the they're the third top audited people.
Wow.
So be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I took off my office and I never took anything else off. So
Sure.
I was trying to stay below the radar there.
I've been
Yeah.
doing that for years, taking off my office and stuff like that. It's usually a percentage of your house.
Yes.
Like
Yes,
if you have
exactly.
7 rooms, then it's 1/6 or 1/7 of the room or something like that.
Or
And
the
you
square
get to take
footage.
off everything. Yeah, you get to take off your electricity, your water. You get to take off all the bills you pay for that house. But once you start
You have to
getting
be very
into
careful.
things like
Yes.
travel and things like that, you have to really be able to explain those expenses.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It has to very specifically connect to your book if you're doing travel. I mean, like
Yes.
Julie's book definitely would, because I mean that all of her whole book was about her journey, right? So she could show that connection, but you need to make sure that you can show a connection for your
Get a good CPA.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Will
guess
do.
a CPA that knows writers too.
Yeah.
Kevin J. Anderson has a story that one of his CPAs, the first one he had, didn't do writers. And actually he got in trouble for some stuff because when it was royalties means one thing in the tax law, but there's a completely different set for royalties for writers. And when they're talking royalties in the big tax law, which is what the CPA was familiar with, they were talking about like royalties from like oil, like if you had money in oil and that kind of royalty thing. So he reported it that way, which was totally wrong. You have to do it completely different. So also make sure you get one that knows writing.
Or get
specifically.
somebody in the mafia. I had a mafia guy do my taxes for years. I had never paid anything.
No.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, that guy is dead now of natural causes, 3 bullets and a stab wound.
James, no. Stay away from the mafia people. Stay away. That's funny.
I know for me, whenever I was taking anything for travel, most of the time I'm taking my own car, because I'm driving, like maybe I'm driving down to Houston for Comic Palooza or something anyway. If you just like keep track of your miles, and another quick way to do that is just print the Google map and stick it in a file. So far, either fortunately or unfortunately, I've not yet made enough money that I've really had to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's hoping that, by next year I have made enough money, I got to worry about it.
You just have to document. Just
document. Yeah.
with the IRS, that's the key, right? Is documentation. Just document everything. Keep all of your receipts. Keep everything in a, nicely documented, organized. This is the one place that you got to go OCD on, because if they come knocking on your door, you need to be able to pull that baggie out and go, here you go, sir. It's right here,
Absolutely.
Yes,
Great.
David.
For my regular job, I'm an independent contractor, so I keep all of my receipts. I've got all of my gas receipts. The 13 file folders are really great for that because you can put each month's expenses, each month's, and like you said, printing out your wherever you're going. I keep track of all of my miles, all of my gas, all of my repairs, and so if they ever want to audit me, I've got boxes full of 13 file folders for them to go through.
Yes. Oh my gosh. At the beginning of COVID, I started like disinfecting my receipts. Bad idea because, the ink just started running. So I was like, okay, we can't do that. So I had to get a little baggie so I could stick them in there and then file them away when anyways, I had a lot of running receipts now. I hope I don't get audited in 2020.
When you started that sentence that way, I started cringing because I'm like imagining what your receipts look like with sanitizer on them.
They just look runny. They look like, like Amityville wall horror art, basically, Yeah. Yeah, I learned real fast.
I'm kind of hoping that the federal government just says, whatever happened in 2020, just don't worry about it.
Like
what happened to 2020 stays in
Stays in
2020.
2020. It's just like, forget it. Don't worry about it.
That is a problem because my CPA says if you don't start showing a profit in like 3 years, then the IRS doesn't want you to keep on going because they say it's a hobby, not a business.
No, you actually, it's not that you have to make a profit. You just have to make money at all, period.
Yeah.
So if you publish a single story in a single anthology and you get $50 for it, then that counted as working as a writer that year. It's not about profit. It's just about actually cashing a check.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like that
I
too.
understand that, but I'm telling you, my CPA, who's quite good and has been through this with a lot of people, says you turn up with $20,000 in expenses and $50 in profit, and the IRS doesn't take that for very long. But I do think that 2020, they're going to have make some leeway. I mean, in my case, I just published my book in December and we were shut down in March. I mean, how much money can you make in a year like that?
One of the things that you do have to look at, and this is just generally you as a business, is are you making progress, right? So is your revenue a little bit higher each year? And I think that's more what the IRS is looking for, is like that you are growing a business versus, are you making profit? Is your business progressing, and is it a legitimate business, And I think if you run it as a legitimate business and you keep all your expenses and such, I mean, you can justify it. And I mean, 2020 is a fluke. I mean, that's just, we can just leave that there, but as far as the IRS, they're not gonna, they're not really looking for profit. They're looking for revenue. Are you making revenue? And then what are your expenses? And, are you growing as a business? But your CPA should be able to guide you on that. I would just rely on your CPA.
I spend a lot of time talking with my CPA and working with them.
They're your friend.
The thing is that I've done
of your publisher and your attorney. Those are your three best friends. Well, and your developmental editor, but there's a love-hate relationship there. You love to hate them.
I took on a big expense that none of y'all know. You talk about your home office. My home office is a whole house. So, I mean, I had to work with my CPA to figure out what I could write off on my business expenses and not for this house. And I'll just tell you, basically the answer is the house is an investment. So there's limited amount I can write off on that. But it means that my expenses, like my first year in 2019, I had a huge loss. So I have nowhere to go but improving after that.
One thing to really, it's almost time for us to go, but one thing to kind of from the last Monday session is to keep your banks separate from your personal monies and your business monies, because commingling is a bad word in the IRS language, and commingling is just not a good way to run a business. So make sure that you have, very clearly your bank that is for your working capital, for your savings that you have for other things. Just keep a really structured situation where your personal money is separate, so that there's no, and that you don't write your, mortgage check out of your business expense. Make sure you keep things, neat. And if you keep things neat, you'll probably be okay, I think that it is time for us to go. It's 8:02. I have enjoyed being with you guys, and I guess I'll see you again. We have one more Monday. I'm not 100% sure what I'm teaching next time. I'll come up with something, or y'all can email me and tell me like what you would like me to teach. That would be better, So send me some emails on what you want me to teach, because I'm not 100% sure what the final Monday I've committed to is supposed to be. Do you want to, do you have a specific sign off, Amy?
No, I don't, but I will see everyone on Friday for the mastermind. If you guys are going to be here, enjoy on the background and my sound system. That's why I'm muted, guys. But no, we're going to do the mastermind on Friday. Hopefully Sandy will feel better by then. But no, I just hope everyone has a great Monday. Stay safe here in Houston. Don't drown. Turn around, you guys. Don't drown. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, everyone have a fantastic rest of the week. And I will see you all on Monday. Or on Friday.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah. Bye, you guys.